It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote this afternoon. Shh. And all of you know, obviously, seeing this blizzard of bold legislation become law over the last number of years in California. Everything from our climate law to the 50% RPS, the doubling in energy efficiency, the 12-cent increase in the gas tax, funding all sorts of clean transportation projects. It takes a bold governor to do that, and it takes bold legislators to do that. We have a surplus of carbon and a shortage of courage in this country, but in California, again and again, we have legislators stepping up. And I had the opportunity to get to know Phil Ting about 20 years ago in San Francisco city government. He was the city assessor, and we worked together with Phil's leadership to create the biggest municipal solar program in the United States. And he went on to join the state assembly, where he's carried all kinds of bold legislation, including a bill to get $3 billion for incentives for electric vehicles. And his latest is now pending in the legislature to ban the internal combustion engine in California by 2040. About a year and 3 months ago, I called Phil because we were both getting really interested in electric vehicles, and I said, Phil, look, we were on the list for the Tesla Model 3, and unfortunately, it took me like several weeks to persuade my wife to put down the deposit for the Tesla. So during that time, like 300,000 people signed up, and so I was late. I saw the Chevy Bolt came on the market. And I said, Phil, this car's out. It's got a 240-mile range. I'm going to go for it. And then, like the day before I saw him after that, he had gone out and bought a Bolt already. And my point is that, so he bought kind of like this, tricked out Bolt that has leather seats and all sorts of extra doodads, but does everything except give you like a hot stone massage. It's one of those. So, but my point is, and the thing you need to know is my car is better looking because I got the hot, very, very attractive red Bolt. So we have an ongoing competition in our electric cars. But it's just an absolute pleasure to have Phil in the legislature, pushing the envelope and being a leader. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Phil Ting.
Thank you, David. We're going to do a drag race after the conference later today through Clark Kerr. Well, it's always great to be back at Berkeley. Go Bears for all the Berkeleyites. And I get to talk about, frankly, one of my favorite topics. California, we have really demonstrated what leadership in climate change, what leadership in the environment is really all about. At the time when Washington is really going back to the future and hugging clean coal and embracing fossil fuels again, I think we are striving to move far into the future as fast as we can. And as you know, we've passed historic legislation to limit our greenhouse gas emissions, really try to make our electricity and our energy cleaner and greener, and we've made huge progress. But we've looked at ourselves in the mirror or looked up in the air, and we've realized if you want clean air, you absolutely need to have clean cars. And there is no other way about it. You all know that's true. That's why you're all here in the audience today. That if we don't do something about passenger vehicles, we're not going to have clean air. That's a fact. You all know 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions, or 50% depending on the most recent calculation, comes from transportation. And 80% of that transportation comes from you and me driving cars that aren't clean. And we keep hearing about all the reasons why that is. And for me, what's absolutely fascinating is when you start talking about clean cars and greenhouse gases and people's eyes glaze over. But when you start talking about clean air, that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about clean air. Everybody has a right to breathe clean air, no matter how rich or how poor you are. In Southern California, 1.2 million people live 500 feet from a freeway. Not 5 miles, 500 feet. Many of those folks have those sound barriers, those sound walls, driving so you don't hear the sound of all the cars going by. But those sound walls don't have air filters. So everything they're breathing is all the tailpipe emission from all those dirty cars. So how do we get there? How do we get to the goal that we're trying to achieve? The governor's put out a bold goal, 1.5 million clean cars, electric vehicles by 2025, 5 million electric vehicles by 2030. And I think this is totally achievable. And we have to do a couple things. It's going to require some sacrifice. One is we have to continue to push the automakers to produce cars that most of us want to buy. Most of us here, we're early adopters, so when we see an EV with an 80-mile range, we're willing to tolerate that and to deal with that and to plan our day around a car that only has an 80-mile range. For most people, that's not going to work. For my commute to Sacramento is 90 to 100 miles. So I couldn't go and buy one of those earlier models because I couldn't get to Sacramento without having to stop every single time and recharge all along the way. So I had to wait till the Chevy Bolt came out. So when the Bolt comes out, when the Teslas come out and the Model 3, these are now game-changing cars that are starting to have critical adoption from consumers, just regular consumers. What's exciting is the litany of cars that people are talking about producing next couple years. GM's talked about having 2/3 of their fleet go electric by 2030. Volvo's already announced that every single one of their cars will be electrified in one way, shape, or form in the next couple years. Ford's talked about doing about 14 models of clean cars in the next few years as well. And what's very exciting is for all of you folks who want to go back to the 70s, Volkswagen is going to re-release their van that's going to have a 300-mile range. So you can grab your surfboards, throw them in your van again, and drive up and down the coast. So I think this is what is one of the major factors. We need cars that people want to buy. And I think we're slowly starting to move there. Next, we have to help do what we can to lower the price. We have a very successful clean vehicle rebate program in place right now. My concern is we have a federal government that is really ready to push clean cars off a cliff. We have General Motors and Tesla almost hitting the cap so that they can no longer offer the federal tax credit. So that's $7,500 that people won't be able to get if they go buy a General Motors car or a Tesla. So we need to figure out and have a program in California that's going to have greater incentives, really be able to catalyze that market and make it much more reachable. One of the biggest critiques about affordability has been about low-income communities. So we absolutely need to make sure we're addressing that. But what people don't really say is with low-income communities, those families really quite often aren't buying new cars, they're buying used cars. And you don't have a used car market till you have cars that are a number of years old. What's exciting is if you want to go spend a couple $1,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 today, you can go get a 3-year-old Fiat 500e, or you can get a 3-year-old Nissan Leaf right now. And if you want to see what the comparable gas car is, it's like a 15-year-old Toyota Camry for that same price. So you can get much better technology, much cheaper in the used car market if you want to go with clean cars right now. So we need to make sure that we're producing an incentive system that is going to incentivize new car behavior, but also push a greater adoption of used cars as well to get that marketplace developed. We need infrastructure too. And it's very exciting to see the 3 large IOUs as well as the 2 largest publicly owned utilities really have a very aggressive push to have much more infrastructure in terms of car charging. And we need a lot more, not just level 2 charging, but level 3 fast charging so that it's much simpler and much faster for us to charge our cars as we get up and down or around this state. With that critical infrastructure in place, that's really going to also be a major game changer. One of our biggest challenges here in the Bay Area, or at least in my town, San Francisco, is we have so many tenants who don't have garages. So we actually need more fast charging infrastructure around San Francisco, around cities, so that people who don't have garages, people who aren't able to charge at home, really have an opportunity to make that charging. And then lastly, recycling. We talk about what's going to happen to our batteries at the end of life. We're starting to really grapple with that issue. We have very large lithium-ion batteries that we got to figure out how best to recycle, to reuse, to really repurpose. And since we're in such the initial stages of that development, we are just starting to grapple with that. But that's going to be top of mind too, because we're going to have batteries that we can't just go put in the landfill and hope that we just ignore. We have to figure out how to go repurpose that technology. So this year, to me, with this being Governor Brown's last year, is absolutely critical. This is a year where we can make major, major progress on clean cars. We've already seen France, India, England, Norway talk about 2030 or 2040 for their deadline. I wish I could say to you that California was going to be first. They're already beating us to the punch. So we're going to need your help to help get clean cars across the finish line this year. And if we can't get it across the finish line this year, I'm going to need your help to do it the next year and the year after and the year after. Because what's so exciting is we have also new technology in the autonomous vehicle space. Every single one of those autonomous vehicle makers are testing cars. None of them is testing a gas engine. They're all testing EVs, they're all testing zero-emission cars. All those autonomous car makers are going to be pushing clean cars out on the road. So with that, I just want to thank you so much for convening today, being here today, and I'm going to really need your help. We're going to need your help so we can go get everybody clean air through clean cars. Thank you so much.